Well, growing up in the 50s, it was a pretty, those were the quiet years, and the expectations were not great for young women of my age or my era or my neighborhood. I grew up in a working class neighborhood where there wasn't a lot of expected of you other than to be a good girl. You did not have sex before marriage. You were expected to be a virgin when you married. So many girls married young and had children by the age of 20. As I left high school, I thought the most important thing for me was not college. I tried it. I thought it would be great, but I picked something that was very traditionally a woman, kind of a job, a secretary, confidential secretary, thinking that was very cool, but was more interested in getting married and being with my boyfriend. I mean, that was just, I had to be with him. So that was where I was at. I think I did accept the premise of the 50s. I think where I began to become uncomfortable was when I became a mom. And that's when I started moving into the 60s, where I saw that there were other options for me. There was always this inner struggle for me to do something else with my life besides just being a mom. Not that I didn't find that of value. I did. No, I did. And I felt very strongly that I should be home with my children, and I was, that was my job. I would not think of having a day treatment, a daycare program for my children. I would not think of having a babysitter. That was my job. Or someone from the extended family. Absolutely not. But when I moved into the 60s, I started thinking, I've got to do something. Maybe a part-time job was what I wanted to do. I did that for a while, but it was always something happening with me. So it was later on that I returned to school that was much, into the 70s. But it was something I was destined to do, yeah. But at that time, yeah, I bought into it. That was where I belonged. That was where I should be, taking care of my husband, getting up and making him farina for breakfast, listening to his tirades if I was late. All those things. I did it. I did it. I was a wonderful. I cooked. I cleaned. I did everything. Absolutely everything. I guess maybe I was asleep. Like many women, and men too, social consciousness was asleep. I don't or did not recall anyone that I knew into the Valium scene. Stressful, yes. That was very, very stressful because you're wanting to please your husband, to make things right for him, to pave the way so that he would be comfortable, so that he wouldn't have anything extra to do, that you could bring him his pipe, the pipe and the hassock, so that he could be comfortable. Yes, it was very, very stressful. I grew up in a household where my parents shared responsibility. They shared parenting. Was very, very nice. They shared parenting. They shared household chores. It was nothing to see my father pick up a paintbrush or a diaper, to clean, to cook, and to participate. So I kind of grew up with that, and at the same time grew up with the mentality that said, this is where a woman should be, what she should be doing. She should, A, be a virgin, do not have sex before marriage, take care of your husband, your children, and not even think about 20 years from now, when we could be pot-bellied and, dowdy and just be there with Dad. I don't think that was ever me anyway, me personally. So, and you had these benign years where you had your dances and you had the cheerleaders, and you participated in some pretty nifty things.
Were you a cheerleader? Or
yes, I was a cheerleader. Sure. That was the thing to do. I mean, if there was something that was a great thing to be in those days, was a cheerleader. Today, I'm not so sure about that, but at that time, to be the cheerleader was a real big thing. In 1962, I was only 22 years old, so I was not that far away from the youth revolution, the youth movement, and the youth starting to revolt across the nation, and the hippies and the long hair, and I wasn't that far away from that, but I was a product of the 50s with a very conservative view of the world and a very narrow view of the world. Still, I think, for me and many of the peers from my community, saw the events of the nation, but were asleep. I can't think of any other way to why we were so asleep. You know, why weren't we saying one thing or the other? I don't think we knew how to act. As a mom, my son was a newborn in 1962 and 63, and absolutely would not have my son involved in any of those events that was going on. Very fearful of what is happening to our nation, because as we moved further into the 60s, things got crazier and crazier. It was difficult to keep up with. There was so much happening. There's a lot of people that I talk to, and I know for myself, would prefer not even thinking about what happened in the 60s. It was so horrible, the things that we saw, nationwide television, Vietnam, Saigon, seeing a prisoner get their head shot off. Those were so shocking. Picking up Newsweek, I remember picking up Newsweek, being a mom, staying at home, it was real important for me to keep on top of things, in the news. So I'd buy the Newsweek, and I'd look through Newsweek, and the Vietnam War just starting to well up, and looking at some of the horrible pictures in there, and just wondering, how am I feeling about this? What is this? And the John Wayne kind of a thing, that the Viet Cong could be at our shores, and not knowing really to be patriotic with my view, or should I be rebellious and say, let's get out of here? Didn't know how to feel. The disagreements came when people had to catch up with those people that were saying absolutely not. And I recall a group of our friends having a lively discussion about we should not be, we should be, and what the hell's the matter with you? And Bob Hope had just come on and said, we could have the Viet Cong at our shores. Is that what you want? That's the kind of arguments we would be having. We've got to pull out that kind of grappling with the motherhood and apple pie and the new social consciousness of the 60s. It was a very difficult period. If you stop and think, we had riots in over 100 of our cities. We had federal and state troops coming out to put order back into our cities. We have King assassinated, Bobby Kennedy assassinated. We had long hairs. We had Jerry Rubin getting up and saying, it's sacred to steal from the rich, and that we're going to make a commune out of the White House. Give me a break. People didn't know how to feel, and many of these people were our peers that were up there with the long hair and saying, well, the blacks and the long hairs and armed women are going to take over this country. You had women throwing away their bras, and you had women dressing unisex styles. No one knew how to be or what to be. So you're 24, you're 25, you're 26 years old, and you see people that are 24, 22, 25 years old, and you wonder if, by God, if our world has gone crazy. You see people with long hair, no shoes, tattoos, if it feels good, do it. You have a whole culture of LSD. You have a crazy professor that says, try it, you'll like it, this LSD stuff. Oh, absolutely. In some ways it was laughable. In some ways it was laughable. The adult support of the youthful revolution, the social consciousness, kind of waned when the Manson murders and the killing in the Rolling Stones concert. The era of permissiveness, that was it. It was over. You've had your fun, kids. That's it now. We've had it.